Super Supportive by Sleyca. Chapter 144. Dawn, Part 1. It was so bright. The first breath was lightning in Alden's chest, and his eyes were blinded by a burning white star the size of a house that hung in the air far above him. Before the second breath, before he even knew the nature of his salvation, there was something crucial, that gravity. "Zarity," he said. His rescuer dropped him onto his back on top of a hard surface, and instantly Alden tried to reach for her, to protect her. He rolled, arms stretched out, striving. A hand on his chest forced him down again. "Were you enjoying the swim so much that you want me to put you back?" a voice asked in Artonin. "Stay." Alden couldn't quite register the instruction, or the one who'd spoken it. "She's right there. I'm so close." "I'll collect her, as soon as I've attended to the riebit I've already caught." An unfamiliar face leaned over him. Dark brown eyes, uncommonly close-set for the species, stared down. "Hello, Alden. I did hope to take a look at you, but I imagined a more social first meeting." "I'm Escherdy. Don't worry about the daughter of the Und family. For now, she's safe. You are hurt and probably very confused. Contract provide an injury assessment for the avowed." After a brief pause, the Artonin patted Alden on the chest and smiled. "You're not dying, and you're obviously not in intolerable pain. The only thing left to worry our minds with is your emotional management. Do you feel so overwhelmed that you might lose control of your behavior or pass from consciousness?" Alden felt a surge of fear, as much as his exhausted body could give him, but not enough suggestion he might pass out. This person wasn't understanding. "No," he tried to explain. "My arms, Zarity." He didn't have enough air yet to fully say the very important things that needed saying. "Save her. Help her. She's with me. I thought she was with me, but she's not in my arms." "I lost." "You haven't." The Artonin leaned even closer to him. Dark hair held together in 3 long braids slid over his shoulder as he studied Alden. "She's right beneath us. You were only an archaic measurement based on the distance of a small mountain-dwelling creature's leap apart when I pulled you from the water, and you're not much farther now. She's still held by your authority." Alden shook his head frantically. "My skill doesn't work like that. I can't. When I'm not... So that's why you're arguing." The man's smile turned strange. "If it's like that, all right. I'll get her for you now, if you stay here." His face, looming over Alden's, had been blocking out most of the sky. When it disappeared, the blazing star overhead stung his eyes again. "Wait," thought Alden, squinting. "What is this? What's actually going on around me right now?" That was when he finally dropped his burden. And when he finally realized he'd been holding her all along. The change was drastic, and it was unlike anything he'd ever experienced before upon letting go of something he was carrying with his skill. He felt like he'd lost himself in one way and come back to himself in another. In that moment, with a soul-deep focus on Zarity suddenly reduced to intellectual and emotional worry, he didn't understand much about what had just happened to him, what was still happening to him. His body was a storm of sensations, most of them bad, and the world was full of such astounding, impossible sights that his brain was doing unhelpful interpretive things as he tried to comprehend it. Like alternating between telling him that nothing was moving at all and telling him the water covering the world was moving pretty fast, because there were visual indications of speed, the way the surface rippled around obstacles, froth forming at the edges of a few still visible rooftops. But it was like a video of fast-moving water that had been paused. Everything was strangely quiet. Not paused, slowed. He remembered thinking that was how it was working when he'd first been caught in the effect. And on top of that, there were so many other confusing things trying to make themselves known to him all at once. He couldn't even understand what it was he was lying on, just inches above the water. The firm, translucent green surface had enough texture to it for him to use a wet hand to push himself upright, into a sitting position without slipping. It was a nonagon shape, big enough for 4 or 5 people to comfortably lie on. It seemed completely solid. Beyond that, though, Alden wasn't even sure if the platform was a magical device or a spell effect. His rescuer, a knight, Escherdy, had placed him near the edge of it. Below him, the ripples the Artonin had created when he jumped overboard were the only things in the world, other than Alden himself, that moved with a normal-looking speed. And that was only at first. As he watched, within a second or two, they slowed just like everything else. He was baffled. He was shivering from cold again. His head hurt. His ankle and one shoulder were throbbing enough through the painkiller he'd taken earlier that the injuries were probably more serious than bruises. And as he tried to collect all of these facts into a coherent picture of what was going on, his eyes were turning to the most astounding sight of all. The blot to the east, that mountain of water, had been subjected to the same magic as everything else. Its collapse was halted and illuminated by more spotlight-bright spells hovering in the air above and around it. Alden swallowed. Who could do something like this? Ali's artist's display of power on Thagand had been larger in scale, true, but Alden had been nearly out of his mind in observing it from a distance as he ran. He'd never actually been in the middle of it while it was ongoing. Here and now, he was profoundly conscious of his own smallness. Then Escherdy was back, breaching the surface of the water with a splash that sounded unexpectedly flat. He launched himself up to land gracefully on his feet on the Nonagon, just on the other side of Alden. He'd only been gone a moment. And was holding Zeredy like she weighed nothing at all. To carry me, she was saying in a faint voice, it would be best for you to leave me here. You must think of the peace your life will give to Tian Ali's art and Tian evil art of Stu art. Are you going to bully a human child with the names of every living art, Zeredy Unde? At a time like this, while you lie bleeding in my arms, don't you think that's too much? For a second there was a pause as Zeredy tried to fix her good eye on the knight who held her, and as Alden stared at the ambassadorial assistant in turn. She's just now finishing the sentence she started before I pulled the enchantment from the puzzle door, he thought. That means I really did keep her preserved, without touching her, somehow. And now I'm not preserving her any more. No! He threw his arms out and opened his mouth to demand that the knight give him his dying Artonin back, but Escherdy was already bending down to pass him Zeredy. Alden tried to activate his skill the moment she was in his arms, but he couldn't. I let her go. I've lost entrustment. Zeredy, say I can carry you, he said urgently. Her braid fell across the arm of the bathrobe she was wearing. The pale brown fabric was being stained with blood. As soon as her good eye met his, her pained expression gentled. Don't worry about those men, she said softly. I'm really not worried about them, at all. Let me... Tiana Escherdy, this is Alden Riabit, Zeredy murmured. His flyer was stolen. Please take him to safety. I'll take care of him, said the knight, keeping one eye on them and pointing the other toward the mountain of water, if you let him carry you. There is also the matter of the greenhouse, she said. Zeredy und, I will be inconvenienced if you don't let the avowed use his skill on you. Escherdy's voice had a tone of rebuke in them that wasn't present on his face. She frowned. Say I can carry you, Alden repeated. We're almost out of here. Yes, Zeredy said hesitantly. Alden activated his skill. It wrapped around Zeredy and he sagged with relief. Holding her, even while sitting down with the bulk of her weight in his lap, was hurting his injured right shoulder. He gripped her with both arms anyway. You're all right. I'm all right. I didn't lose you for long. We're not dead yet. Can you hold her like that for a while? Escherdy asked. I'll be sending you both to a medical facility, but since she's injured so badly, I have a specific healer in mind. I can hold her, Alden said. His skill lacked that extra something he'd felt earlier, the sense of stability he'd barely given any attention in the midst of everything else that was going on. But he wasn't in immediate danger of losing her. I'm not sure I could walk with her, though. I'll try if I have to. I rarely ask the avowed I'm responsible for to walk on broken bones. Escherdy was rearranging a stack of rings on one of his middle fingers, unless they're members of a species that enjoys that kind of thing. He extended an arm at the ringed finger. In response, the green platform glided forward smoothly and gently. I'm sorry I can't give you as much of my time as I would like. Later, I'm sure I'll have a moment. For now, I'll be carrying you both to the edge of the pacification, and one of your own people will take you both to safety from there. Pacification, thought Alden, staring around them. Is that what this is? He was still breathing hard. He was cold again, and he was just becoming aware that the stretchy pants he had on beneath the robe were way too interested in stretching now that they were saturated, and they were not nearly interested enough in doing their job as a pair of pants. It was a wonder he'd kept them at all. At least his messenger bag had stayed with him. I almost drowned. Just now, I was drowning. He'd asked to use his privilege. He'd been rejected. And now a knight of the mother planet was ferrying him to safety through his flooded nightmare, like his own personal gondolier. The light spell didn't follow them, but it was illuminating such a large area that everywhere was still strikingly clear in the harsh blue-white glow. They traveled along what must have had been the middle of a street, away from the epicenter of the flood. More and more rooftops gradually appeared as the water became shallower. Are you doing this? Alden asked, his voice quiet. He looked back toward the slow-motion cascade set against the backdrop of a sky that was still growing paler. No, this is Lindota. Do you like it? It was crystal clear that he expected Alden to like it. I do. She saved me. And you did. Thank you. You're welcome. The timing was fortunate. There were a few different places that would have benefited from our help. We actually chose this one because we were looking for that one. He nodded down at Zeredy. Several hours ago she called out, and sent a cryptic message out along with it. What happened to her? They felt her? Does that mean that same authority cry I felt? All the way at Matadero? His arms locked a little tighter around Zeredy, and it sent a lance of pain through his shoulder that made him grimace. I'm sorry I can't cast a pain relief spell for you, said Escherdy. Lind is good at that kind of magic, but I've been at odds with most healing spells for years. I'm fine, Alden said. Esh gave him an amused look. You have an interesting phraseology. Did I say I'm fine wrong? No, you said it well. Here, I can cast a spell that will warm and dry your clothes. A moment. He briefly turned what looked like his full attention to Alden and chanted a series of long lines. Alden felt his robe and his pants heating up. When he'd finished the spell, Escherdy continued speaking without waiting for Alden's thanks. Zeredy und injuries. She was protecting me, Alden said firmly, and herself. 3 men attacked her. They were trying to steal the flyer. They tried to kill her and me. She stopped them. Stopped them? One of them could be alive, maybe, probably not. I left him in the ambassador's greenhouse. I didn't make sure he was really dead. He might have been pretending. The ambassador's house isn't there anymore, Escherdy told him. The men were avowed? Yes. Will she be in trouble? She shouldn't be. Did she use magic to stop them? Escherdy asked. Alden frowned down at her. Is she a wizard? It took the knight a few seconds to answer. It is bad manners to say yes, so I will say no. What does that mean? I didn't see her use any spells, Alden said. She punched one in the throat, stabbed one in the head with his own weapon, and she made the flyer take off with the third inside. His arm was in the way when the roof closed. Escherdy tilted his head. He glanced at Zeredy again. The arm got chopped off, Alden clarified, just in case that wasn't obvious. I see. I'm sorry for the difficulty of the night. Below them, the water had gotten shallow enough that Alden could see a lot of the destruction wrought by the last wave. The bodies of the motorcyclist and the men from Iowa were probably underwater now, somewhere. What if everywhere looks like this, he wondered again. It seemed impossible that the rest of the island could be untouched if this place was so utterly devastated. How many people are gone? Should someone like you and Lindota be here just for the two of us? He asked. What about everyone else? You did enjoy your swim, didn't you? Alden shook his head. Someone had to deal with the ocean in this area anyway. It encroaches far too quickly. Lind and I can work unencumbered without so many hopeful helpers running around. Alden had recovered enough to have more questions, but one eclipsed the rest. And who would know better than this person? Is the Earth contract going to fail? It didn't matter if the system said the risk of chaos exposure was negligible. Too much had gone too wrong. He still wasn't allowed to text anyone, and now that he wasn't under immediate threat from the water, that fear could come to the forefront again. It wasn't quite as strong as it had been, but it still had the power to make his stomach twist. Not at the moment, Escherdy's face darkened. This planet has revealed some fragilities that worry me greatly, though. Something about the way he said it stole the hard-won air from Alden's lungs. Before long, they were approaching the edge of Lindota's magic. All around them, the world began to accelerate. Where the water hadn't flowed away, it was just pools and puddles exhibiting normal puddling behavior. Did she slow time, or is it something else? Alden asked quietly. This is the slowing of motion, not time, Escherdy replied. I'm sorry you've seen it under these circumstances. But I'm happy you can witness her powers at this scale. She approaches the limits of her abilities with this particular work. It's mesmerizing, don't you think? He looked around. Where did that human flyer go? The knight crooked the finger he was using to direct their platform, and they turned the corner of a building. A short distance away and below them, a black helicopter was parked in a surprisingly clear section of the street. There it is. Alden, the human pilot, will carry you and the Und girl from here. Alden was wondering why the helicopter hadn't just flown closer to pick them up and save the Artonin some time. Then it occurred to him it might not be able to get through Lindota's pacification. So far, only Ash-Urdi and the things he'd interacted with seemed to be able to move normally. Before he could even begin to figure that out, something else distracted him. "Did you call Zaradi girl?" he said, a little surprise leaking through. "How old is she?" "I don't know her exact age. Before meeting her here, I was only vaguely aware of her. She is the relative of a friend. But she was given her place here very young. But she's not really a girl. I misspoke. She should be twice your age? A few years more?" Ashurdi was obviously doing something back in the pacification area, since he had his head turned slightly and one eye pointed that way, but the eyes still pointed at Alden shone with interest. "Why? How old did you think she was?" "I didn't seriously think about it." "I sense something humorous hiding behind your lips. You must tell me." "I just thought she was older." "But how old?" Ashurdi insisted. Alden hadn't had a specific age in mind. Zaradi looked quite young, but he'd learned not to put too much stock in that, and she just seemed like an older person. 60 in your years? "That's boring," the knight said in a disappointed tone. "When I tell her about your mistake, I will say you thought she'd at least seen the end of her first century." He lowered them to ground level, and Alden got his first look at the side of the helicopter. A wide splayed V formed a network of geometric patterns was painted there in gold. Velra? It was impossible not to recognize Lut's oft-maligned tattoo. "Do you know Aulia? She donated this flyer and its pilot for evacuating people from this place. According to the contract, there should be a few more after you." "I have met her," Alden said. "Is she tender of feelings?" Ashurdi asked. "I did not think so when we first met, but after I explained the nature of the crisis, she seemed even more deeply affected than the other humans." Well, thought Alden about 15 minutes later, I did say I'd go to Matadero today. He sat on a rolling gurney, Zaradi in his lap. It turned out that the least busy medical facility, and also the one that was best equipped for helping a seriously injured Artonin, was right here, inside the cube. And now they had a grand total of 1 human and 1 preserved ambassadorial assistant as patients. Two avowed, a healer and a brute surgeon, were trying to get a word in edgewise while a very short and overbearing Artonin hopped right up onto the gurney beside Alden and started injecting him with one hand and spelling him with the other. The extent of the wizard's willingness to converse with everyone else was something like, "Chant, chant, chant. My patients! Ashurdi gave me these. I will tell you if I need assistance. Chant, chant, chant. Stab, stab." Behind them, the automatic doors were shutting off access to the helipad, and the pilot was already taking off again to pick up more people. She'd been very upset about what she'd seen of Apex in the pre-dawn light. "I can't believe they abandoned part of the island," she'd said more than once on the way here. "This doesn't look like home." They'd flown straight here, so Alden hadn't seen anything but the ruin he'd already been in. "Can't believe I survived it. I can't believe the Longs did." He'd given Ashurdi the scratch card before he left, and the man had taken it. Graciously, Alden now realized. A knight who had the system's cooperation didn't need a toy to find a bunch of lost avowed. As the gurney rolled down a bright hallway, Alden looked at the 2 human adults. How many people are hurt, missing, dead? Before he could settle on which to ask, the feel of a hand going to the tie on his robe set an alarm off in his head. "No!" he said in Artonin, clutching the fabric closed with his fist. All 3 members of the medical staff looked startled at the vehemence in his voice. Alden was exhausted, and he was sure some of the things he'd just been jabbed with were making him even fuzzier. But his aureate was tightening around his left bicep as he suddenly realized, for the first time since he'd been pulled from the water, that there was a risk of the casting tool being discovered. He was in a situation where people were going to want to take his clothing. Doctors just love to do things like that when you were injured, so busy trying to provide you with medical care that they never stopped to think for a second how depriving a guy of his shirt might ruin his life. The Artonin healer blinked at him through a pair of glasses with tiny lenses and held up something that looked like a large silver fish scale. "I need to put these on your chest and arms for my next spell." "I'm too shy," said Alden. The humans looked even more confused than the alien. Maybe the system wasn't translating Alden's nonsense for them, or maybe they were just wondering what kind of person was so shy that a near drowning wasn't enough to make him expose his torso. "I'll be quick," said the Artonin after a moment. "I'll put them on myself," Alden countered. "In private. I need to use the bathroom anyway." "You don't know how to sing the sticking song." There is a song that makes them stick? I'd rather you take care of Zaradi first. My skill could fail any second. When it fails, I will help her. For now, I am helping you. The wizard and Alden stared at each other. If I can't put those things on myself, then I'll be the one who moves my clothing around, Alden said slowly. However you need it moved, I'll do it. It's easier if you... The good child Klepak's parents say we don't have to be afraid of healers because they're very understanding about our worries. The healer adjusted his glasses as if he needed to peer at Alden a little harder. All right, he said irritably, but you are too old for Klepak. I recommend you view the stories of his cousin Kwupak. They will help you navigate the urges and struggles of adolescence. Alden's relief was soon overwhelmed by the need to summon up the last dregs of his focus. His Ariad had been getting better and better about helping out when he wanted it to move around on his body. Thanks to that, the two of them managed an awkward dance with the robe while the healer applied the scales. The indigo loop changed arms twice, and by the time they all arrived in Matadero's medical center, Alden had managed to get it to slide down his back and into his pants, so that he could lie still and not act like quite such a menace to the people trying to help him. Why is this place so huge? He wondered as the Artonin continued to cast spells on him. Matadero itself was very large. It was hard to get a sense of its scale from pictures, since a shiny cube on the water didn't really offer you much to go on. But as the helicopter had approached, Alden had been surprised to see how the walls loomed, and how far below the pad the waves had been when they'd landed. He assumed the bulk of the structure was a big, empty space of some kind. Very powerful Avowed killed very dangerous things here. He doubted they worked in a mop closet. But however large that space he imagined was in actuality, it was leaving plenty of room, because this med center definitely wasn't the simple spot Alden had imagined. It spanned multiple floors, and it was basically a fully equipped healing hospital, just one devoid of patients, and mostly devoid of staff. I really don't like the fact that this place is so huge. That can't be a good thing. You didn't build entire hospitals in places where you didn't expect to one day need them. You want to sleep? The healer said. What? Alden was pulled from his dark calculations about the number of beds that must have been here by the question. The healer was finally prying the scales off of his chest. His injured shoulder felt better, but nothing much had been done for his foot yet, or for his hand, or... Sleep will be good for you, said the Artonin. It helps with the healing, and with the healing. Alden could tell there was some common turn of phrase by the way he said it. And we may have more patients coming, and she will need a lot of help. He was frowning at Zaradi. Head injuries. He looked unhappy about it. Will she be all right? I'll handle her myself. She will be fine. You leave her with me and go to the shower. He tapped the leg of his glasses. I've already ordered Shower 1 to deliver your potion sprays. Don't stand on the leg that hurts. Just balance on one foot. I'll tell the humans to put a squish boot on you when you are clean. Alden couldn't imagine a human doctor telling him to just hop off on one leg to the shower, but then again, it wasn't like he would have trouble doing it. And he was so tired. I want to sleep, he agreed. I want to sleep and not be afraid for just a little while.